there are no proposals. Nothing's in concrete. Through the American Fork visioning process, we have talked about a lot of ideas. And I'm going to, in a minute, present some of those to you, but there are no concrete proposals. Nothing is, there are no building plans. There are just a lot of ideas that we have put forward as a part of this process, like we hope all stakeholders will do. The process is at that point right now where every good idea should be put on the table. So now I'm going to give you our brief presentation on some of these ideas that we hope will be considered through the American Fork visioning process.
Yes, Bob. I guess my concern kind of with these other people here is these 416 acres that are being swapped. Those are forest lands right now, correct? So those are accessible to us to recreate in. These 400 acres, 16 acres, they would pretty much make all your properties connect, right? And so that kind of patchwork that we talked about back in the commission office about properties kind of scattered wilderness here and private owners here, that kind of diminishes, okay? So I think that's what the concern is for a lot of us here. Suddenly we had this forest land that was over here in Utah County. Now suddenly it's being traded to you guys. We don't have any say. A vote's coming up next month, whether it's gonna happen. We're like, wait a minute, please hear us. That's one of the concerns. The other point I wanted to make is you mentioned you're gonna provide these recreational opportunities. We already have those there. That's the big thing. We all mountain bike there, we hike there, we fish there, we hunt there, we take our four-wheelers and our Jeeps up there. We already have that there, and it's free. It's commerce free. And our concern is once it gets commercialized, you own this land. I have yet to see a resort that's gonna let me take my truck up there on the resort or anything like that. Mountain biking, they will, but I gotta pay a fee. Do I wanna take an ATV? Oh, well, you can, but now you gotta pay our guide. He's gonna take you up and get behind me and follow me what I do. You follow what I'm saying? And horseback riding, the same thing. You wanna go on a snowmobiling trip? Pay our fee and we'll take you on there. So that's kind of what I see happening. It just seems like American Fork Canyon is kind of like the last jewel for us because everything is developed. Big Cottonwood, Little Cottonwood, Park City, the canyons, Deer Valley. They're a beautiful place. I'm a skier. I'm a big ski resort skier and a backcountry skier. But it's like American Fork Canyon is like the only place you can go that doesn't have lift towers, doesn't have commerce, doesn't have, you have to buy tickets, and just doesn't have that. It's kind of a view shed. You follow me? It's just kind of wilderness. And then that's my big concern is when it gets commercialized, developed, the chair goes in there, whatever, it becomes commercialized, the access diminishes, you have to pay to recreate. But you know what? Recreation should be free. It's forest land. It's there for us to enjoy. That's what we enjoy about it.
I don't really have a reply to that.
Some of the discussion has been that there's an intent to extend the mineral basin lift further down the canyon, and then this aggregation of property in Mary Ellen, and then if you were to get the mountain accord, is there intention to do a connector lift over into from Mary Ellen to Mineral Basin so that you have ski runs in both the Mary Ellen Gulch and extending down deeper into Mineral Basin? Is that a correct kind of thought process?
Yes, we have discussed extending the Mineral Basin lift down and also, doing some type of connection. But I'll also point out that those are things, we can put lifts in Mary Ellen Gulch. Some of you probably might have noticed that we, added the road in Upper Mary Ellen Gulch to what we call, I'm sure you guys don't, but we call it Sunday Saddle. We can put a lift back there already just on our private property. So a lot of that can happen regardless of what happens here with additional Forest Service land.
Great. And doesn't the mountain accord also give you property in the upper elevation of the Twin Peaks in Mary Ellen?
Correct.
So is there a plan then, in order to use that land in Mary Ellen, you would need an access from the upper elevations. Does it bring the gondola from Hidden to Twin Peak back into play if Mountain Accord goes through? Is that something that Snowbird would be pursuing?
Not to Twin Peaks, but it is possible to put something across the top from Hidden Peak over to the far side of, again, on our private property on the other side. And we don't need Forest Service land to do that either, to be honest with you. We can do that from Hidden Peak over to the far side of Mary Ellen Gulch on our private property.
Okay, and then what you mentioned earlier as well was you wanted to give Utah County people more opportunities to recreate in the canyon. And one of the fears that people have, frankly, is a gondola going from the Twins or going from Mary Ellen down to above Tibble Fork Reservoir. What are your thoughts on that? Is that
so? I
something
think that Snowbird put it on the table as an idea to consider. I think as we work through this process with the American Fork visioning process, if people think it's a good idea, then I think we ought to take a look at it. I think if people go, we hate that, then I don't think we ought to look at it. But I think we ought to put it's one of many ideas, and I think we ought to consider it.
I'll speak for myself. I hate the idea. One of the challenges there is that you're abutting wilderness land. There's roadless, 2 or 3 miles of roadless land at the top. I mean, some of the most beautiful area in the central Wasatch, and you don't have that viewscape problem. I mean, a gondola in there totally changes the character. And I'm a resort skier and backcountry skier. My problem is that once a resort gets a lift access, I mean, to the point I've heard, you don't see 4-wheel drives, you don't see private user groups frequently going in ski terrain, and especially in the winter. And so that, there's some drainage there that's taken away from backcountry users in basically in a 40-year increment, and whatever extension the resort gets for a special use permit, because that's a lot of public land that potentially is impacted in that. And that's where I think people in the community need to get aware that it could really change the character of the canyon if that were to happen.
Right. And I appreciate your opinion, and I think it's, if it turns out that our community, your community, think that it's a bad idea, then I think we ought to not do it. Snowbird is committed to work with all residents, community leaders, all organizations, the Forest Service through this process to ensure the proper outcome, as we've done for 45 years in Salt Lake and Utah County. In all honesty, we know that we'll never get 100% consensus on things that we want to do, but on the other side, we want to do things that have the support of our community, a majority of our community. We don't want to move forward on projects, where it's a major battle and where we don't have a consensus of a majority of the communities in which we operate.